Anunnaki Homeworld by Jason M. Breshears. Read by Kevin Stevens, also known as Grendel Dark. Archive 16, Shards of Niburu. Today, astronomers specialize in branches of astronomy related to space technology and have very little concern for historical astronomy. Dr. Arthur J. Brandenberger, Laval University, Quebec. The pioneer of contemporary historical astronomy was Charles Fort, a researcher who diligently pored through the meticulous and vast volumes of scientists from around the world and correlated their findings in his books. These works have been the bane to scientists who refuse to accept Fort's life work. He is today virtually forgotten. To those remembering his works, he is regarded as an eccentric, not to be taken seriously. And this, unfortunately, is the fate of Zecharia Sitchin, who opened our eyes to the ongoings and impending return of the Anunnaki. He is heeded by the masses that have read or listened to his theories, while also kept at bay by his academic colleagues. These men, and those that carry the torch afterward, are regarded as impostors who trespass on the sacred terrain of science. Charlatans seeking fanfare rather than the dissemination of truth. In 1932, Lewis Spence accurately commented on this situation, although referring to charlatans rather than serious researchers like Fort and Sitchin, writing, "For every falsely inspired charlatan, we have 100 scientific dullards, who, acting on the assumptions and acceptances of stupid convention, actually believe that the mere collection of data suffices for the foundation of a theory." Charles Fort and Zecharia Sitchin both agreed on one thing, and from entirely variant positions. A dark, unknown world was periodically visiting the inner system, sometimes casting a shadow on our own planet, sometimes only on our moon. While Sitchin searched the annals of ancient Sumer, the Near East, and the records of civilizations from antiquity to support his theory for Niburu, Fort diligently demonstrated from the pages of modern periodicals, newspapers, scientific reports, and astronomical studies that strange objects were regularly entering the atmosphere, crashing in both remote and urban regions, and that the inner system was known by astronomers to be populated by incredibly large and formerly unknown objects, as well as apparent constructions that had their own locomotion. Anunnaki vessels, perhaps? Although he stopped just short of stating this. This author believes that he himself has provided the necessary bridge between the archaic evidence of Sitchin and the modern findings of Fort and others. It has become imperative that we have a working model of these theories in order to convince the critic of their probability. So much historical data concerning astronomical events is listed within this one book that it became apparent merely by a chronological organization of these accounts that Sitchin's Anunnaki Homeworld, Niburu, not only exists, but has been seen throughout history and has seeded our solar system with comet groups and trains of fragments so many times and with such periodicity that these orbital periods were easily ascertained. But this does not infer the perfection of a theory. There are some astronomical reports and earthly occurrences that have not appeared in these orbital chronologies because they did not fit. This does not make them less important, but demonstrates that not all objects in the inner system are attached to a major orbiting group. The solar system is now so full of junk that we cannot possibly calculate all of the things strewn throughout. It is these objects that frequently blot out more distant objects viewed through telescopes by astronomers, a phenomenon frequently reported but still unexplained. Most astronomers neglect to report them for fear of ridicule, with the result for those who do report them being a condescending explanation concerning a flock of birds, satellite, weather balloon, swamp gas, or a cloud, among other things. The following is an abbreviated account of years not listed previously in this book, and the unusual events that transpired. 1665 AD. In March, a blue silky substance fell from the sky in great quantity near Naumburg. A terrible plague struck London, just as predicted by William Lilly. Official death toll in London alone was 68,596 people, but other estimates are closer to 100,000. 1669 AD. From March 8th through 11th, a series of tremors and quakes coincided with the eruption from Mount Etna in Sicily, killing 100,000 people. March 17th, on the town of Châtillon-sur-Seine, a reddish liquid rained that was thick and putrid. 1752 AD. On April 15th, over Slavange, Norway, was seen in the heavens a strange star of octagonal shape, and balls of fire fell from a streak in the sky seen from Augermanland. 1755 AD. On June 7th, a quake in northern Persia killed 40,000 people. On October 15th, over Lisbon, Portugal, was seen numerous meteorites, and 16 days later, on November 1st, a transcontinental earthquake shook the lands and seas from the Baltic to the West Indies, and Canada to Egypt, and Algiers, Morocco, throughout northern Africa up to Germany, Holland, Spain, and France. About 10,000 people were swallowed up by the earth, and the world-famous cosmopolitan city of Lisbon, Portugal, was covered in a great blackness when the quake began ripping apart the city. About 60,000 people had taken refuge upon an expansive granite quay, which broke and plunged 600 feet deep, taking all the people with it, as well as destroying entire ships full of cargo. Not a trace of these unfortunate people or vessels were ever found. Nothing floated to the surface to betray their fate. By 2 p.m. in England, it was noted that the ocean had become restless with unusually high waves. 1783 AD. An earthquake at Calabria, Italy killed 30,000 people. The Icelandic volcano Laki erupted, as did the Japanese volcano Asama, and together the two, through dense atmospheric ejecta, initiated 3 successive extremely cold winters. The astronomer Herschel noted explosions on the moon, indicating volcanic activity. 1833 AD. The Tuanaki Islands in the Pacific vanished, with all of its inhabitants. Some reports put the date at 1844. Search vessels found no trace of the island or survivors. A brilliant meteor show was seen over the United States in November. Many meteorites seemingly struck the ground, but all that was found in the areas of descent was a strange, viscous, gelatinous substance. During the shower, an unusual hook-like object traveling across the sky was seen over Ohio, and over Niagara Falls was seen a shining, table-shaped object traveling with the meteor train, which appeared to stop for a while before moving on. 1839 AD. A massive continental earthquake spanning from Turkey into Russia occurred. Astronomer De Cuppis reported in October that he had discovered a massive object moving through the inner system. Earlier, on June 18th, a profound darkness fell over Brussels, and there fell flat pieces of ice an inch long. 1852 AD. A triangular cloud on December 17th appeared during a storm. With it was a red nucleus clearly visible, about half the diameter of the moon with a long tail. It was visible for 13 minutes before the red nucleus exploded. 1866 AD. 4 times in this year, a black inky rain fell on Scotland, and on June 30th, a peculiar storm occurred over England. The people noted that the sky remained partially clear in areas, but rain and hail continued to fall. Volcanic activity was recorded in the Aegean at Santorini. 1878 AD. A total eclipse of the sun occurred as the moon transited, and Professors Watson and Rawlings of Wyoming witnessed 2 shining objects in the inner system near the sun. A report verified by another witness, Professor Swift of Denver, Colorado. 1882 AD. On January 22nd, at about 10:30 a.m., a black darkness fell upon London, England, and many other parts of Britain, as reported by Major J. Herschel. So dark, in fact, that voices of people that could not be seen across the street were clearly heard. There was no trace of a fog. On July 3rd, people in Lebanon, Connecticut witnessed the appearance of two triangular-shaped objects in the sky over the moon. They moved toward each other and then vanished. From the diversity of other accounts, it appears that these triangular-shaped vessels have visited Earth several times recently and been seen. A gigantic cigar-shaped body was witnessed moving slowly across the skies through the telescope of the Royal Observatory of Greenwich, England, on November 17th. It is the same form appearing as a shadow on satellite film from the 1989 Mars Observer probe right before the probe was destroyed. On December 21st, astronomers noted a bright object near the Sun. 1883 AD. Astronomers reported seeing a train of irregularly shaped objects passing over the Sun. An earthquake on the island of Ischia off Naples was attended by a tumultuous sea. Quakes in Russia and Turkey dislodged great chunks of ice upon Mount Ararat. Turks explored the mountain and found the remains of a gigantic wooden ship fitting the dimensions of Noah's Ark at over 12,000-foot elevation. In February and March, dense atmospheric dust was reported over Trinidad and Natal, South Africa. On February 27th, an earthquake was felt in Connecticut as a luminous object was viewed in the sky. Meteorites fell during windstorms on May 18th at Hillsborough, Illinois, on July 7th at Lachine, Quebec, and on September 24th in Sweden. On August 28th, the volcano Anak, related in name to the biblical Anakim, Anunnaki, on the Indonesian island of Krakatoa exploded with a force of 220 megaton bombs, which excavated a hole at the bottom of the Pacific 1,900 feet deep and ejected 6-foot boulders as far as 25 miles into the atmosphere. The blast sent a tidal wave 100 feet high over the area of Java and Sumatra, destroying almost 300 towns and killing about 36,000 people. Volcanic ash was thrust into the atmosphere, and we are told that this dust veil cooled the Earth, causing the next 3 severely cold winters and 7 years of phenomenal sunsets and global hazes. However, much of this was caused not by volcanic ash, but by the Earth being blanketed with cosmic dust, which was first reported in February and March, 6 months prior to the Krakatoa explosion. In November, loud noises were heard over Queensland, South Africa, and there fell a pulpy substance like balls of dust. From November 10th through 12th was seen a strange comet with 2 unusual tails. 1896 AD. A submarine earthquake in the Tuscarora Deep, south of Japan, caused the sea to recede, leaving behind stranded ocean creatures. Multitudes of Japanese went out to gather the creatures and fish, but they were quickly overtaken by a 90-foot tsunami returning to the coast at 450 miles per hour, killing up to 30,000 people. As the sea receded back from the land, people from even high villages were pulled out to sea to never be seen again. This was similar to the 365 AD event. No astronomical phenomenon reported in this year. 1907 AD. On July 2nd, over the town of Burlington, Vermont, a terrific explosion was heard throughout the city and a ball of light was seen to fall from the sky, but disappeared. Some witnesses claimed to have seen some strange torpedo or cigar-shaped object in the sky. In October, a black rain of a very disagreeable smell fell over Ireland. 1908 AD. On March 27th, A white substance like ashes rained upon Hanoi, France. And on June 30th, a bright, fiery object was seen by hundreds as it traversed the sky over Siberia, where the object detonated over the heavily forested region of Tunguska. The blast knocked down trees and destroyed forests up to 300 miles away, creating a wasteland, even knocking people off their feet 100 miles away. Had the blast occurred over any city, it would have ceased to exist. Iridium levels reveal that the object had approximately a 7 million ton weight. For 10 days in early June, meteorologists recorded unusual intensity of the northern lights and other atmospheric disturbances. These signs were seen over Europe, Russia, and Siberia, including the appearance of silvery mesospheric clouds, bright twilights, and extremely intense solar halos increasing in intensity until the explosion. The explosion was seismically recorded in Irkutsk, Turkey, Tashkent, Tbilisi, and Jennah, and the pressure of the blast affected barometers in England. On July 2nd, exactly a year after the July 2nd explosion over Vermont in 1907, the sun was shining and the sky was clear over Braemar, when thunder was heard, and then pieces of ice fell from the sky. 1989 AD. On March 23rd, an asteroid over half a mile wide missed Earth by only 700,000 miles. It appeared undetected, and had it appeared 6 hours later, it would have probably killed 70% of all life on Earth. 1 year before Sitchin's first book concerning Niburu was released in 1976, Dr. Bartholomew Nagy published his own controversial research in 1975 concerning the existence of microbiological fossils on and within meteorites. Like Sitchin's work, the evidence was ostracized from peer review and academic consideration. These two researchers essentially unveiled different aspects of the same truth. Sitchin reported on the existence of Niburu from old records, while Nagy did so from an astronomical one, though he was unaware that the vast majority of carbonaceous materials falling from the sky were from Niburu. He was himself convinced these space fossils derived from Mars. In 1950, a meteorite fell near Murray, Kentucky, and two scientists of the Arizona State University independently examined the rock and detected the presence of all 18 of the known amino acids, as well as pyrimidines from the nucleic acid of what was once living cells. In 1970, a meteorite fell to Earth and was named the Murchison meteorite. Studied by the Ames Research Center of NASA and the scientists of two universities, it was determined to have contained within it definite traces of amino acids. In 2001, scientists of the Ames Research Center released data on the discovery of carbon-rich meteorites found on Earth that were loaded with organic compounds, including amino acids and sugars. That Niburu was an inhabitable world supporting seas and vegetation is evidenced by the study of those objects that fall to Earth. Our own world has been virtually enveloped in times past by viscous substances, silken webs, not from spiders, reddish and ink-black rains, often smelling offensive, real blood, revealing that at some date prior to Nibiru's virtual destruction, there had been a great war or disaster just prior to the surface of the Anunnaki Homeworld being quick frozen. Bituminous matter has fallen to Earth, sometimes looking like coal, and in other instances resembling a leafy, paper-like material. Decomposed vegetable matter that had been frozen for thousands of years, sulfurous meteorites, carbonaceous rocks, putrid resinous remains, downpours of pebbles, yellow and brown dusts, and gelatinous pulp aerolites have all descended to our world from Niburu, sometimes in conjunction with actual vessels that periodically visit as well, which leads us to the end of our study. An anciently destroyed world, once inhabited by the Anunnaki and their own creations, necessitates the existence of fauna and flora, if we are to accept the olden records that Niburu was a world like unto our own. Much of the decomposed and foul-smelling materials fallen to Earth throughout history may be the residual remains of such plants and animals that were encased in ice, floating through space. But there is a phenomenon so totally ignored by the scientific community that this author has found it integral to this thesis on Niburu. It is the origin of some insects, especially arachnids. Are they indigenous to this world? In Sumerian and early American texts, the Anunnaki were represented as scorpions, arachnids, as seen in this author's work entitled Descent of the Seven Kings. In the 10 plagues on Egypt, which has been demonstrated was linked to the appearance and tails of a comet, we find that an inordinate amount of insects plagued the Egyptians. Could they have come from space? Insects used as a type of judgment upon mankind is a theme found throughout the biblical records. These little creatures are incredibly resilient, able under the most extreme conditions of cold and heat, humidity, submersion, or aridity, to go into a stasis for years and years on end, and when the weather, environmental conditions conducive to their survival and propagation return, they can come out of their bodily stasis and continue living as if nothing had ever transpired. A planet quick frozen and fragmenting would have hundreds of billions of insects encased in its frozen surfaces that fracture off and become comets. Trapped in ice that enters the atmosphere and then through friction is changed to gas, many insects would survive the descent and then free fall upon the Earth. Unlike mineral or metallic objects, which, through intense friction, burn up. Records of insect rains are by themselves unconvincing. However, the following various accounts, all collected by Charles Fort, have been selected to baffle even the critic. 1811 AD. Snow in Saxony was found to have a large amount of larvae from an unidentified insect species. 1827 AD. During a snowstorm over Pakrof, Russia, fell immense numbers of black insects. 1830 AD. As it snowed over Orenburg, Russia, a multitude of black insects said to look like gnats, but with flea-like motions, fell from the sky. 1837 AD. During a snowstorm over Bramford, Speke, and Devonshire, England, a large number of black worms, about 3/4 of an inch in length, fell with the snow. 1849 AD. On January 24th, the weather was cold, no rain nor snow, but instead a rain of black larvae in enormous numbers over Lithuania. In the same year, in August, after a large clap of thunder, a slab of ice 20 feet in circumference fell out of the sky at Balluve, Rossshire, England. It fell alone, without hail. 1850 AD. Large numbers of worms were found in a snowstorm near Sangerfield, New York. In Warsaw was found weird beetles that moved like caterpillars on the snow. 1856 AD. Approximately 300,000 larvae fell with snow in Switzerland. 1857 AD. A substance fell from the sky at Kaba, Hungary, which contained organic matter, analogous to fossil waxes. 1858 AD. In May, a large number of larvae beetles fell from the sky near Montagne, France. The larvae were inanimate, as if with cold. 1876 AD. Throughout Norway were discovered worms all over the snow and ground. This proved to be a great mystery, for the worms could not have come from the ground because it was frozen solid. 1890 AD. In January, a storm occurred over Switzerland, a tempest of larvae. They were black and yellow and incalculable. A great many birds were attracted to the area and fed upon the larvae. The yellow larvae were 3 times the size of the black ones. 1891 AD. Worms fell with snow several times over Virginia in the United States. 1899 AD. Yellow and black worms were discovered on a glacier in Alaska, a region where no plant or animal life survives. 1911 AD. On June 24th, at Eton, Berkhamshire, England, masses of jelly fell from the sky, the size of peas after a heavy rainfall. The substance was said to contain eggs, and later small larvae emerged. How interesting to find that the very celestial mechanisms that end life on Earth, comet impacts and detritus from the skies, also brings life to Earth. Perhaps we would do well to re-examine much of the biblical records, like this statement God made to Job. Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow? Or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? Job 38:22. The disasters of the book of Revelation and Old Testament prophecies will be delivered to our world frozen, ancient time capsules from the beginning that will initiate the judgments of the end, the Shards of Niburu.